a tweet here, but speaking of your sort of oil thesis there, obviously it's been doing quite well in this environment. Russia's, I think USA has been relying on Russian oil imports in the last year. And so there's obviously another case for Canadian oil and having that pipeline built, which Biden shut down. But
so on that point though, let's be clear here. The US used to have like a negative current account balance in energy products of like 2%, which is freaking enormous. Now I can't remember the exact number, but it was a lot. All right, it's 2%. Now it's basically has a closed current account balance with respect to energy products. So like, yes, they do import some oil.
Can you simplify that?
So basically, like, think about your net exports, right? So so whether you're exporting versus you're importing. So if you export a lot, and so like Germany, for example, has a huge export economy and they import very little, right? So Germany's current account balance, which is, the last time I got into it, Keith made fun of me for boring everybody, but basically your exports minus your imports and then a couple of other stuff. And if you have a massive current account surplus, it means you export loads of shit. So Germany has has tied itself to a cheap euro, and so has inflated its current account balance. It's a conversation for a different day. But so, and the US basically used to be a massive oil importer, but thanks to Barack Obama and his infinite wisdom, the US increased their barrels per day production from about 4 to about 12. Right, so they're the largest oil producer in the world right now, and they now closed their current account balance with respect to energy, and so they basically produce exactly as much as they consume, and that has changed the geopolitical landscape. I'm sure people smarter about this kind of stuff will tell you it's probably why they don't give a shit about Afghanistan anymore. Who knows? But and so that's why when you read about those headlines, with respect to the US importing, Canada imports oil from Russia too, but there's different things, right? Like Canada produces heavy crude, the US produces light sweet crude, but there are applications that you need a mixture, you need high sulfur content, low sulfur content. There's something called a gravity. I'm not a chemical engineer, so forgive me if I fuck this up, but there's something called the gravity, which is the type of oil that you use. Also, companies have certain competitive advantages when it comes to refining certain types of energy products, whether it's tar or crude oil, jet fuel or kerosene. And so the idea that the US imports lots of oil from Russia is like, okay, sure, but it's nowhere near what it was, let's say 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago. I think as far as being weak with respect to your energy dependence on Russia, Keith brought it up before, which is that Europe is totally screwed out of this. And the reason they're screwed out of this is because their largest economy, Germany, which is about 25% of Euro area GDP, imports, I'm going to read this out here, 50% of its coal from Russia, 55% of its natural gas, and 35% of its oil. And that's because in their infinite wisdom, they closed their nuclear power plants because a bunch of people are basically stupid. And I think that's a much more kind of acute energy dependence thing that we should probably address or talk about.
I think that's a good way to like.
And they invested billions in solar back in the O's, which was all subsidized by government spending. And then as soon as they removed the subsidies, they all went under.
Like you could wrap the show up right there and be like, so the moral of this episode is that Europe and in particular Germany is entirely screwed.
I think the moral of the story is I think we need to be much more cynical about these. Like a lot of these climate policies have geopolitical, like real impact. And I think, you can talk all you want about climate change, but if we're all dead, it doesn't matter that there's, no CO2 in the air. You know what I mean? So like, we need to be like the idea that Canada, for example, here's another one. China produces like 60% of all the rare earth metals in the world. All right. So what if China does the same thing? What if China invades Taiwan? I know we're speculating here, but guess who has lots of rare earth metals? And guess who guess which other Canada. And up until about 2 weeks ago, we were a liberal democracy that respected the rule of law. And so we should consider, as a country that cares about democratic values, we should consider exploiting our natural resources.
Yeah, I